Massive. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security paid nearly $700,000 to a counterterrorism NGO to, quote, intercept and divert Twitter or X traffic away from specific individuals in the manosphere. At Rational Mail, at Cobra Tate, it's Andrew Tate, and at Fresh and Fit Pod, among others, were specifically named as targets. The DHS TVTP grant funding was given to Arizona State University, home of the McCain Institute. The purpose of this grant was to design a native tool to be used on Twitter to effectively suppress individuals in the manosphere by diverting their audiences away from their content towards counter-messaging content, websites, podcasts, and creators curated by the McCain Institute to counter, quote, hate speech and misinformation. The U.S. government has named the, quote, manosphere as one of the biggest terror threats facing the U.S. They claim this broad network is the main cause of, quote, extremely isolated acts of incel-related violence. The conflation of incels with the broader manosphere as a justification for targeted counterterrorism ops, which can include aggressive surveillance and censorship, is part of a disturbing trend. The ever-broadening definitions of terrorism and extremism put forth by the U.S. government poses a very real threat to the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens. And we know this is what they do. They do it to us. They're doing it to Andrew Tate and others now. Even worse, the grant application and resulting reports suggest a large-scale collaboration of tech giants, NGOs, and the U.S. government agencies to design and implement tools to counter hate and disinformation by diverting web traffic away from specific individuals and communities deemed harmful. What is harmful content, according to the U.S. government? White supremacy, anti-government views, foreign terror organizations like ISIS, and the manosphere are the top 4 threats, according to the McCain Institute. That's right, according to the McCain Institute, it's like ISIS is pretty bad, right? I mean, they're out there in the desert taking sex slaves and chopping people's head off and putting people in cages and drowning them on video. And then there's the manosphere. People like Andrew Tate tell you to stop being a wuss and work out and go talk to women. So, I mean, these things are basically the same, I think. I think they're basically the same. And the funny part is, when you really get right down to what these groups are all engaged in, ISIS is actually better for them. You know, ISIS actually serves a purpose. ISIS is trying to destroy Syria, which is one of their primary opponents. ISIS was created, according to certain U.S. generals, to destroy Hezbollah, which, as we've seen over and over, is a major barrier to the achievement of certain goals from our Zionist overlords. So, you know, for these people, ISIS does some good, actually. It actually does some good to them, right? ISIS is out there taking on their enemies in the real world, providing a boogeyman to justify endless war and deployment in the Middle East. A lot of things can be made out of the usefulness of ISIS. The manosphere, however, well, that's nothing but negative. I mean, they're not killing anybody. They're not out there actually doing anything illegal or bad. But you got to understand that these groups and their attempts and entire purpose being to enslave humanity, you don't want people telling young men to be strong and to reject liberalism and to reject self-guilt, reject self-pity, to stand up against the onslaught that's constantly being waged against your way of life.
FBI, open up!
Gentlemen. Oh, good. Well, now we got the robot dogs have arrived. Excellent. You know what you need to do, Ryan? You need to.
I'm not Ryan. I'm Pat Stedman. I'm a sommelier, and I'm political prisoner.
They probably
smell of girls.
There's probably some app where you could like actually use a picture of him and then like put your like your expressions and your like voice behind all of it.
Oh, there is, but I would rather do like, remember the Conan O'Brien thing where it's just you cut out the mouth and put your mouth in there? I would totally do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, welcome to our new world order. Yeah, today. Wow. Yeah. But I was just going to say is that was actually a video from our good friends at InfoWars, who are now free and clear, I guess, on Twitter, or I should say X, Twix. But yeah, so this has been something that's been ongoing for quite some time, and I guess all of you are now my collaborators. So we all hang together, or we don't. we all stick together, or surely we'll hang together.
Gentlemen, it's been an honor serving with you
Yes,
tonight.
yes. I was going to say
We're blowing up the San Francisco Federal Reserve next week, right? That's on our terrorist list. Okay.
Yes,
In Minecraft, yes.
My
Yes,
FBI
in
agent on
in Minecraft. Yeah, allegedly.
my FBI agent on Instagram is working overtime right now.
Yeah. Well, I just thought this was interesting because, like, and Ryan's sort of been. I guess you've been following this as well with me with Bex BX. That her real name is Rebecca or something like that. Mm-hmm. But she actually, I at first I wanted to think that she was just kind of like just sort of another one of these sort of
nut bars,
tinfoil hat kind of OCD about conspiracy theories and shit. I got wrapped up in this back in 6 months ago now, but no more than that. Actually, I think it was back in May. But I noticed I think it was the guy, the research. I should call him Dr. Will Costello right now. But William Costello was a guy who did the incels research paper that has been like widely criticized because it's really shoddy methodologies, let's just say. And so that's what really kind of brought my attention to all of this. And then I learned that I guess it was non-governmental organization NGOs that were funding all this research. And I thought this was interesting because it went back to an experience that I had back on the Dr. Phil show when I was sat across from Imran Ahmed. I don't know if you guys remember that whole exchange on that show, but I'll just try to give you guys the brief version of this. And I'm going to tell you right now, John Fitch is going to love every living second of this show today because it's the government. But I don't usually do shit like this, like I don't. This is not my wheelhouse.
You guys do know what the number one cause of death is worldwide throughout history, right?
What's
Government
that?
interference.
Government.
Heart disease.
Government.
Seed oils.
Yes, seed oils. Yes, of course. No, I was just going to say is, so I was on Dr. Phil about a year ago. It was November of last year, and then the shows didn't air until this year. But I was there, and I knew I was going to be sat across from Dr. Richard Reeves because I was the one that actually suggested that Richard Reeves be on, because I really wanted to have a good conversation with him because I thought he was like at least somewhat, someone you could have a conversation with. Then there was Imran Ahmed, who was sat across from me, and I had no idea who this guy was right up until about a week or two before the show. And at least they gave me some advance notice as to who he was. It was also the time that the FBI had released their their list of words, or their concern lists, and one of those, of course, was the manosphere and incels, the rising incel threat. And they were using terminology that we use like every day, like based. Based was like one of these watchwords that you had to be careful of. I forget Chad and Stacy and all of this stuff. That's like basically the kind of stuff you see like looks maxers and like the guys on PUA hate or slut hate would be using. Black pill doomer speak is basically what it is. And I thought it was laughable because now it's like suddenly the FBI suddenly thinks that they have some sort of insight into what's going on in the manosphere. Well, it turns out that it's not actually the DHS or the FBI. It's the NGOs that are like providing them with this, because they don't give two shits about the manosphere. It's non-governmental organizations that are like sort of these watchdog organizations. And I became aware of this when I was going head to head with Imran Ahmed. So Imran Ahmed is the top executive, or just like a president. I don't know what his position is, but he's one of the higher ups in this organization called the Center for Countering Digital Hate. And I went and I looked that up, and like before the Dr. Phil show, and got a better idea of what they were about. And essentially they're an NGO, and they're a watchdog NGO, and they don't just go after manosphere types. They also go after, they're kind of like the Southern Poverty Law Center or the ADL. They go after whatever they think is, some sort of upcoming threat. And apparently I was on that list, and Andrew Tate was on that list, and the Manosphere was on that list. And Imran Ahmed had the balls to go on Dr. Phil and claim that he was the one that was responsible for canceling Andrew Tate back in August of 2022, when he lost all of his payment processors. He lost his YouTube account. He lost basically, like, within the space of a week, he was just basically erased by big tech. Well, Imran Ahmed wanted to go up there and front this idea that he was the one who took the scalp, right? He wanted to front the idea that he was the one that actually took down Andrew Tate. And I knew damn well he did not take down Andrew Tate, because I was, talking to Andrew. I was talking to Justin at this time, Justin Waller, who's really tight with him. I knew exactly what was going on during that time. And I said, Andrew Tate got canceled by big tech, but you had absolutely nothing to fucking do with it. And then later, I didn't realize this until later on after the show, but I'm like, why the hell would this guy want to go on live TV and present this idea that he was the one to bring down Andrew Tate? Because that show was real. I was just a proxy for Andrew on that show. They wanted Andrew Tate on that show. They couldn't get him. So I was the understudy. I was the first alternate. Right. And so I'm there trying to be this apologist for Andrew Tate. What they really wanted to do was sort of point fingers at me and say, you're dangerous and you're causing all this, you're ruining the youth of America and that kind of shit. And if they couldn't get Andrew, then they had me. And I was like, why is this guy like all up in my grill? Who am I to this guy? Right. And then I realized that if he doesn't do that, if they don't have some sort of scalp, if they don't have some sort of result, if there's no demonstrable, proof of worth for that particular organization, they cease to get money and they cease to get donations. And so those NGOs, they exist by fronting and putting out this presence or this idea that they're actually doing something. It's like make work, right? So what better way to do that than to go on national television with Dr. Phil and claim that you're the guy and your organization was the guy that brought down Andrew Tate, and see, here's some results, proof of concept, proof of work. And I was the only one there who probably could have said what I did at that time. I said, you absolutely had no say, or he had no influence in taking him down whatsoever. And the only reason he was there was to present the idea that they were actually doing something. That was my first encounter with an NGO that had something, had an axe to grind with the Manosphere. Apparently, there's a whole lot more of them now, and one of them was called Light Upon Light. There's another one called, the one that we were mentioned in just recently is the one that's called Divert Hate, or something like that. And Divert Hate was the recipient of about a $700,000 grant from the DHS to go after and to do these studies on the Manosphere. And most of these organizations, these NGOs, are like the natural evolution. They developed from a set of laws that was set after the Bush administration and after 9/11 to watch homegrown terrorism and to watch out for ISIS sleeper cells in the United States. And it went through, the Obama administration, then it went through the Trump administration, then now it's in the Biden administration. And all these guys promised to cancel out the legislation to have these NGOs be watchdogs, but they don't. They just rename them and turn them into something else. It's like the Trump version of whatever George Bush decided was a good idea back in the mid 2000s. And so now we've come full circle, and no longer is it about homegrown terrorism. It's not even about white supremacy. It's not even about ethno-nationalism or anything like that. Now it's about the Manosphere, because the Manosphere is an easy target right now. It is it's the boogeyman that we're probably the best boogeyman they've ever had, because they can make up any story that they want. So when I saw the research done by Will Costello, and I saw how shoddy it was, and then what really brought to my attention was the fact that he also is in the on a research group of Dr. David Buss at the University of Texas, or Texas, I forget where it's at. But essentially, what Dr. David Buss is doing is rubber stamping this research on incels, which was done only on incels.co, which is the forum for the most major, I guess, incel forum there was. I didn't even know who they were up until around May or June of this year. And using a sample size of less than 500 of these people and paying them to take the survey. And I'm like, this is probably the single worst. I mean, even a first year grad student in psych would get an F for this kind of methodology. But yet you have Will Costello using this as his doctoral thesis to basically get his doctorate. And now it's been publicly available finally. And you see organization where you see like guys like Chris Williamson, you see guys like bigger name like Tim Pool's been quoting this. I saw Forbes magazine's website, their blog has been quoting this study. And I'm like, why is this getting why is this getting traction right now? And the reason is that it is essentially it's kind of like marketeering is what it is. They create the problem that they only have the unique solution to. And so you've got the DHS that's involved through the NGOs who are creating this need for a study like this. That study then perpetuates the idea that incels are some dangerous group of individuals on par with ISIS, on par with homegrown domestic terrorism. And I'm looking at this going, what the fuck is, and by the way, my name is at one of the ones at the top of the list, and my sites and my accounts are at the top of that list. Are they implementing this software? The next thing I wanted to say is that there's the, what the guy, I don't know who that guy was. I know Alex Jones's lackeys was talking about is it's a proposition at this point. It's not that they're actually doing this diverting, at least as far as we know, but it's a proposition to divert traffic away from all of our sites, everybody in this group, everyone who is associated even peripherally with the manosphere, to divert them to healthy masculinity sites like I don't know, the Good Man Project.
That one weird fishing one.
Yes. Yeah. One weird. Yeah. Men fishing and all the pinnacle of men sites that me and Ryan love so much. So yeah, so that's the outline. And I mean, hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of, I got more details on all this stuff. It really requires a dedicated show. And I probably will end up dedicating my Sunday show to this, but it's just, there's so much to cover in all this. And
well, I think you did a spectacular job of you simplified it to its core element of what it is. This is just a money grab for a bunch of nonprofit academic types.
Yeah.
A grift off of a grift off to a grift. Yeah. It's like those Mishka dolls.
Yeah. But and Chris Williamson, by the way, Chris Williamson, Mac Murphy, Date Psych, all the rest of these guys are, if they are not actively working in this, they are complicit in it. Chris Williamson, the reason why he's a notable name at this point is he was actively recruiting incels, quote unquote incels, back in I think May or June to participate in this. And I should also point out that I tried to at least on a couple of occasions, I tweeted out saying, do not participate with these sons of bitches. They're bad methodology. They have no interest in helping incels out or any of this crap. And by the way, Ryan, that's when I became familiar with Not So Erudite, because she got all up in my grill about, why are you trying to actively, sabotage this really meaningful work and shit like that. And I'm like, now we see, the chickens have come home to roost here. And I know for a fact that Chris Williamson is in fact a very good friends with Will Costello. He's done shows with him before. So whether he is, implicit or complicit in this whole, machinations here, it's really kind of up for him to explain. But no one has explained. No one has actually said anything about this. No one involved in that study has even acknowledged any of this stuff up to this point. And now we're seeing this getting on Alex Jones. And granted, it's Alex Jones. I wish it would have been on something other than Alex Jones, but I'll take what I can get at this point. But it's just something to sort of, ring the alarm bell about, because I think that this is what we're going to end up seeing more and more of going into 2024 election cycle.
How embarrassing is it when you make the red pill space your arch nemesis and your potential marketing grift? That's how low we are. That's how desperate people are for cash. That's what gets me.
Yeah.
Well, you can't pick a better villain. Like ISIS, you get paid fighting ISIS, but I guess that requires work. Maybe that's
It's also a little bit dangerous. Those guys shoot back.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just have podcasts where we talk smack.
Well, have you gone to any of these websites and looked at these people? Like I went to the McCain Institute, and by the way, it's a Republican. It looks like if a Christian political group in the Republican Party had a wet dream and could create their own little perfect race of people. It's so squeaky clean Republican-y. And so it's apolitical there. But these people, it is just a money grab. But you look through them, they're all academics. They're all professors. Their staff and team is a bunch of dumbass, like epitomal Zoomer interns. And then the other one out in New Hampshire, I think it's in Middlebury. I remember looking at these two gals who are running their anti-hate project. They're just parasites. And I don't know. I think just bringing it to the forefront, like we do have a platform here. More people are going to listen to us. Simple self-defense. We are not ISIS. We're not threatening anyone. We're talking empirically and practically about things to prevent incel shootings or stuff like that. And these people should actually be ashamed. We should just point out, like, look at it. You're a fucking nobody you just living off the taxpayer to fight a problem that doesn't exist. I don't know. I think we're doing what we need to do right here, right now.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing I was going to say is that it's not just a left or a right. It's not just liberal and conservative. All of these sort of think tanks, all of these NGOs that are watchdog NGOs, it's a cottage industry right now. Once I started coming at the manosphere and I started doing a little bit of research on this, I'm like, man, there's a lot of these things. Like there's, by the way, there was an organization, I don't know if they're still intact, but it was called Light Upon Light, and they actually purchased and bought out incel.co, the forum. So you've got people who are technically part of the federal government that are in the incel forums to begin with. And so if that doesn't bias, if that doesn't corrupt the data of this official study on incels and like what they're all about, I don't know what does. And no one is talking about this except for us and maybe Bex or whatever. But getting that information out there because the thing that gets me is like the manosphere is like so eminently hateable. Like people just want to say, oh, it's those losers. It's those guys who know they're perma virgins, right? Nobody would fuck these guys. They're just capital L losers. And it's easy. They're an easy boogeyman to hate. And if there is no boogeyman, no one gets paid, right? Well, the manosphere is such an easy boogeyman to have, and because you can just simply make up whatever the fuck you want to and say, oh, it's just those. Everybody's a red pill loser, right? Anybody who's those red pill guys, they killed my dog, right? They're the reason for global warming. The red pill guys are you name the urban blight. That's red pill. Those red pill guys. Right?
That was my favorite little campaign we did, by the way. We started blaming it all, like the JFK assassination. I think it was great.
Yes, they put fluoride in the water. Those red pill guys. You name it. That's where it came from, man.
What are the studies that they're doing? Like, what do they do? We polled 500 incels and found out they're all poopy heads. What academic research are they possibly doing? I don't know what their thesis would be.
Well, so the one that I was mentioned in is called Divert Hate, and they have only been in existence since 2021, and they did some sort of report. It was from, I want to say, is it ASU? It was Arizona State University. It's a university group that did this, and then they ended up becoming an NGO as a result of this research that they had done. And now this was the report, I guess, by Divert Hate, explaining what the manosphere is, and essentially having this really sort of boneheaded understanding of what it's everything that you would think is an exaggeration of the manosphere ends up in this report. And so now they're the recipients of another $700,000 grant, and their solution to all this is, of course, to abridge free speech and to divert traffic from sites such as the Rational Mail or wherever else to healthy masculinity sites, which ought to tell you something, because if you go and you look at those quote unquote healthy sites, One of those
so cringe.
with Jason Baldini and his man bun guy, right? I'm just like, oh,
Was that the one we talked about like 2 years ago?
yes,
Those guys, Jesus.
that's healthy. That's healthy. That's oh, we're all gonna sit around and talk about our feelings in a drum circle or some shit. That's healthy masculinity.
Damn hippies.
He's getting my fucking traffic.